Mr. Chair, I move to irrevocably terminate the 46,800 acre initial non-exclusive option.
In spring, with Lake Okeechobee High, we were dreading yet resigned to getting dumped on, even as the lake had a confirmed toxic algae bloom. We were told there was no alternative. That's how the system was designed. A month later, South Florida was in a drought, and emergency measures were being taken to keep the lake as high as possible. And a couple of months after that, after a week of heavy rains, we are getting dumped on. This is how the system was designed. With such little flexibility, we can go from certain toxic discharges to drought, back to polluted discharges after just a couple months and a little rain. That is a broken system, not a system working as designed. We do not want or need one drop of Lake Okeechobee water. We need to be working to redesign the system so we don't get it, except we are not. The only plan on the table that would fix this broken mess was the option to buy U.S. sugar land. This option was prematurely, irrevocably revoked by the Water Management District Governing Board this spring, even as toxic discharges loomed. Despite 207 scientists, despite a U.S. study, despite hundreds of activists repeatedly going to meetings and pleading with the board, despite lots of media coverage, the Water Management District changed their excuses for why they didn't want to do the deal. First, it was there are too many constraints to send water south. Many of the constraints were nonsensical. Weather, for instance, was listed. But some were real challenges, but no more daunting than the challenges faced by other water projects. There are constraints to damming Lake O, yet they did it and they continue to do it despite enormous cost. There were constraints to channelizing the Kissimmee River, but they did it. There are constraints to de-channelize the Kissimmee River when they realized channelizing was a bad idea, like a lot of people had said, but they did that too. The point is, their job is overcoming constraints. They just happen to mention them when, for political reasons, they don't want to do something. After the constraints talks, they went with the U.S. study states first priority is finishing existing projects. The U.S. study states no such thing. The U.S. study lists a few things in no priority order that need to happen to stop or reduce the discharges. They all need to happen, or the discharges won't be stopped. Tyler Treadway from the Stewart News called the head of the Water Institute, Wendy Graham, to confirm that there is no priority order for the projects. She was clear, no priority order. Yes, existing projects need to be finished, and yes, we need a lot more land, including south of the lake, or discharges won't be stopped. Despite the author of the study saying no priority order, South Florida Water Management Board members kept right on saying it, as if by saying it over and over again it would be true. It's not. Since the author refuted it, it's no longer a misunderstanding. It's a blatant lie with intent to deceive. But they keep on saying it. What the UF study says, and the most important point of the whole fiasco, is the one thing that has kept the discharges going, is we have never been able to get a good chunk of land south of the lake. Sugar doesn't want to sell it. Government subsidies make it a gold mine for them, and more importantly, they don't want to change the system. The lake is their water supply, and they're always first in line for drainage. It works perfectly for them, just not for the coast, the Everglades, the people of South Florida. They want the system to stay just the way it is, and they have the power over state government, federal government, and especially the South Florida Water Management District Governing Board to keep it the way it is. Lastly, just before they took the highly unusual step of prematurely revoking an option, which is bad business in any situation, because they wanted to remove the confusion caused by the land option so they could pursue other solutions, they started talking about what a bad deal the land option was. It wasn't a bad deal. There were some eyebrow-raising elements of it, which were negotiated by South Florida Water Management District. It's very fishy stuff, and why in the 11th hour was the Water Management District suddenly talking about contract as the reason to not pursue the land deal? Why not mention that from the beginning? The whole thing stinks to high heaven and only makes sense when you begin to look at the loyalties and connections of the South Florida Water Management Governing Board, all picked by Rick Scott. All connected to agribusiness, especially the sugar industry, development, or both, since more and more big sugar is big development. Not a single member with a remote track record of speaking for the health of the estuaries or Everglades. Not a single voice, not a seat at the table, not any access to the bowels of that bureaucratic organization where decisions are made and plans are hatched to be dropped on everyone else at the last minute with no warning. What it looks like is the sugar industry, through Rick Scott, completely controls the planning and decision-making process for the Water Management District. The district, even despite having its budgets and authority drastically cut under Rick Scott, especially science and engineering, is the most important agency in South Florida. They have taxing authority. They control water supply and drainage for a massive area that is very susceptible to flooding with explosive development and population growth. Oh yeah, and it contains the Everglades, one of Earth's natural wonders, and hundreds of miles of ecologically and economically valuable coastline. Yeah, the South Florida Water Management District is in charge of all of that. Sugar likes to say they're just farmers trying to do their part, and the rich people on the coast blame them for everything. The truth is, there are a handful of millionaire and billionaire landowners out there who have a long history of exploiting people south of the lake and keeping those communities impoverished. They are experts at gaming politics and government. They and their lobbyists and politician servants are the only beneficiaries of this corrupt, broken system. They use their massive cash hoard due to subsidized profits to scare politicians from speaking out against them and to promote positions of leadership, their most servile lackeys. Behind closed doors, they influence all policies, rules, budgets so that their subsidies keep rolling in and taxpayers shoulder the burden of their water supply and drainage and pollution. And they are poised to turn their vast fields not into wetlands and treatment marshes that everyone else in South Florida so desperately needs, but rather into industrial and residential sprawl that will permanently imperil South Florida's drinking supply. It will prevent the restoration of the Everglades and prevent the stopping of the discharges.